Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Brady. I'm here with TaskRabbit CEO Ania Smith. Anya, good to see you.
Very nice to see you as well. Thank you for having me.
Great. Well, listen, I love your background. You've worked at Uber, Airbnb, Walmart, Expedia. I could go down the whole list, but I want to actually start with this 1 year that I see on your resume here, a gap year in Argentina at the height of your career. I feel compelled to ask why you decided to do that.
It's such a great question. And it is something that we had actually been planning for years. It's something that we felt was going to be extremely formative for our family, and it ended up being even more adventurous than we had thought. And it really brought us closer together and allow us to be in a, frankly uncomfortable space. We didn't know the language. I had never been to Argentina. And so everything was new, from the food to obviously new friends, new school for the kids. And it was just really great to take the time to step back and think about what we want to do with the rest of our lives, how we want to get closer as a family. And I highly would recommend it to anyone. It can be a scary thing to do because it feels like, at the time, my husband and I were both at the height of our careers. So
This was just
quitting,
a few years ago, basically, right? I mean, it
yeah,
was
this
it was
was,
after Airbnb. I mean, I just want to. How did it shape your thinking? You said it was a formative year for you. How did it shape your thinking as a leader?
for me, it made me really think about what's important to me personally and what values I have and how I want to bring those values to my everyday life, both personally but also at work. And when I came back, I actually ended up getting a bigger role and then even a bigger role. So the fear of what is a year going to do, a blank year in your resume, actually turned out to be completely unfounded. And I feel since COVID and all the lockdowns, many people have had the opportunity to really think about what is really most important to them. At the end of the day, for me, it is my family. This is where I think I will have most impact. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the little kids in my house, they need me more than anyone. If something happens to me, it's going to be more impactful to them than anyone else. And at the end of the day, it really is what matters. And so that year really helped us to know that as we go into teenage years, as we go into this next phase and adventure as a family, what do we want to focus on? And it gave me more confidence as well, which then led to bigger roles and bigger opportunities at work. So I highly
Such
recommend it.
as such as CEO of TaskRabbit. I mean, let me. Especially since you've worked in other places like Uber, Airbnb, a lot of people put TaskRabbit in the same bucket as the gig economy. Can you give me some sense as to how you differentiate it in this whole puzzle of how we work today?
At TaskRabbit, our mission is to transform lives one task at a time. And when I think about what that means for taskers, it really means that they have the autonomy to set their own schedule, to set their own rate, and keep 100% of the earnings that they make on our platform, to really think about where they want to work and how they want to work, in what areas, in sort of what specialties. And I think that flexibility and being able to really decide whether they want to just work on weekends or work in the mornings or work in the evenings while they set their own rates and keep all the earnings really makes TaskRabbit a very special place. I have met hundreds of taskers over my time at TaskRabbit, and it is really interesting to hear how there's everyone from students, college students, and those who just recently graduated, to folks who have been, maybe in previous lives they were in sales or in some other jobs, but decided that actually they want to do something very different and unique. Sometimes they go on YouTube and learn how to mount a TV, and then get to be an expert. So they become this person who can mount your TV in any different way, and they really optimize the platform to make a lot of money if that's what they want to
Well,
do. So at
get,
TaskRabbit, it's our average rate is $46 an hour for a tasker. This is a really great opportunity for people to be able to earn a meaningful income.
So, Anya, let me go back to a little bit maybe about the demographics. How many taskers do you have, on average in any given month on the platform?
So we have thousands of taskers. We are in hundreds and hundreds of cities, not just in
Mm-hmm.
the US, but we now operate in 8 countries. And
Mm-hmm.
so on any given day, we complete thousands of jobs, which requires thousands of taskers to be on our platform.
Do you have a sense of how many people it's their full-time occupation? Because that's really sort of how, as we discuss companies like TaskRabbit and the future of work, is this going to be the means where they make most of their income, or is it a side hustle, do you find, for a lot of the people?
That really ebbs and flows, and it ebbs and flows depending on the market, depending on the season, depending on
Mm-hmm.
the country. What we're trying to do at any given point is ensure that we provide the opportunities for taskers to have as much or as little work as they want or need. And so if you want to work full time on our platform, there is that availability to do that, meaning we're providing a lot of opportunity for you to select different tasks. And if you only want to work on Monday evenings because that's the one evening you have, we want to make sure that we provide those types of opportunities to you. So it's really hard to answer exactly because we don't track that every day. And it really depends on everyone's actually definition of what full time is.
Mm.
What we focus on is making sure that we provide the amount of work that people want.
Well, then give me some sense, because I know that you've worked in previous roles, even what you've learned from Uber, Airbnb, Walmart, et cetera. I mean, you've had opportunities to work, in so many different spaces. How, when you look at what you've done in the past that's really sort of helped you in this role, what would you point to?
I think there are a couple of things. I think first and foremost, really understanding how to operate a marketplace ends up being really important. And it can be quite complex. And knowing how every decision you make has an impact not just on, for us, on the clients, but also on the taskers. So when we, for example, change a policy or change the way taskers book their jobs, obviously that really impacts clients as well. And so you always have to be thinking about both sides of the marketplace. It becomes a very analytical problem and technical problem, which is fun. I think the field is still quite new. I think we've been around for 10, well, we've been around for about 12, 13, 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
And very similarly to other companies in this space. And there's still a lot for all of us to learn about how we optimize the match between supply and demand. In our case, that's our clients and our taskers. And we've seen a lot of innovation in this space. And I think that there's still a lot for us to learn to continue to grow and scale.
So you're coming on your third anniversary in this role. What how does TaskRabbit look different, or what do you think you've done in those 3 years that you would point to in terms of what attracted you to the job and what you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, so look, we're much bigger. We are 3 times the size that we were when I started in terms of our revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Less so in terms of our people, which is a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
but still very much so growing and scaling. We also have really started to focus a lot on again, really thinking about how to optimize the match between our clients and our taskers. And so we think that we're able to provide those opportunities to taskers at a much better rate. And we think that we're also able to really become very beneficial to our clients. And especially after COVID, a lot of people, like I mentioned before, have really started to think about priorities in their lives and what's more important. And we want to be there to help them have more time to spend with their friends, their family, their loved ones, and doing things that really are important to them, so that we can be there to help paint a wall or put together a desk or mount a TV or do that extra cleaning or something else that is very much so needed for them. So I think it's been really interesting to see how that has evolved over the last 3 years, partly because obviously we've been living in very unusual times over the last 3 years.
One of the ways I think of TaskRabbit being different is a lot of platforms will match, professionals with clients. Like, I'm a licensed blank, and I'm offering my services here. TaskRabbit's different in that, to your point, they're often amateurs. They're people who maybe are, professionals, or they've looked at a YouTube video and they've mastered something. I know that you've got, I think it's, I don't know if it's like a happiness guarantee or something like that. But how do you think about that rise of the amateur to some extent? Because TaskRabbit is the company that immediately comes to mind when I think about that.
We do have the happiness pledge. What I really think about is the percent of our tasks that where people are extremely happy, and it is in the high 90s. And anecdotally, I always hear from friends how excited they were when someone came to their house and did a really good job. Of course, not all 100% of tasks go positively, but that's the case in any business. But for vast majority of our tasks, our clients are extremely happy with the work that the taskers provide. So in terms of or how skilled they are, some of them have decades of experience of being an electrician and just want to have their own business and want to have more autonomy and more agency in terms of the jobs that they take. Others, like I said, as an example, a couple of years ago, I met a tasker who had just graduated from NYU, and it was sort of midst of COVID, and he wasn't sure what kind of job he can get. And so he did learn how to mount TVs, and he really mastered it. He lived in Manhattan. He graduated from NYU, and so he was able to do 2 to 3 mountings of TVs per hour. We have at least 1 hour minimum for every job. So at the end of the day, he was making north of $200,000 a year just mounting TVs. And
wow. There goes that degree.
There goes that degree, right? And so, I think there's different ways that we can define what does it mean to have the right skill. He was very focused and very narrow, meaning he wasn't willing to be painting or moving or doing other tasks. He knew that this was the optimal job for him, and we were able to provide the hundreds and thousands of these jobs to him. So I think that's the important thing. You can decide to go broad or you can decide to be more narrow. We want to make sure to be the platform that gives you that opportunity in any case.
Let me ask, put different hats on here. One of which would be the Washington hat. And there's been a lot of discussion around, regulations and what's happening with the future of work. What role does government play? If you're in Washington right now, you could wave a wand and change anything. Is there anything that would make it easier for taskers or for TaskRabbit to really thrive and grow?
So I think it is an important question to think about how the future of work is evolving and what that really means for the wider population. And so, historically, there's sort of been 2 buckets of sort of the full-time job, and then you can be a contractor, and then nothing in between. But as the world evolves and the way we work evolves, and more people are moving into this independent contractor bucket because they want flexibility, because they want to be their own boss, because they feel that they can have more agency over the type of work. And this is in all fields. This isn't sort of in the electrician field or the cleaners field. This is people who are producers, who are writers, just across the spectrum. I think we need to develop a way to think about how to help and make sure that these folks also have a set of benefits and a way to feel like their work is worthwhile, and that they don't need to sort of have the traditional 9-to-5 job to have the 401k or a way to save for retirement and and so on. And so I think as governments sort of catch up, all of the industry, including TaskRabbit, needs to work with state and local governments and really make sure that we develop a framework that allows people to feel and to know that they have the security that is needed without doing the full-time work. The way the system is designed right now, it's too bifurcated and too separate. And I think that there is work that we can all do to come to a middle ground. And we're excited to continue working with governments to move in that direction.
What are you doing at TaskRabbit? Like, what do you see as the role of your company in this, in terms of?
So,
Go ahead.
no, so I think for us, it means having the ongoing conversation with people who really are in the seats of making the decisions and making the laws, and making sure that there's an understanding that there are different types of gig economy workers, and there's different ways to think about regulation. But really, at the end of the day, we should be all working towards making sure that that group of people feels very secure and protected and has the ability to work in the way that they want to work without the traditional 9 to 5 job. So we will continue having these conversations, and then for our side, making sure that we continue to allow taskers to earn a meaningful income so that they have the ability to maybe put away or save some money for some of these benefits. So that it's not sort of becomes extremely difficult for them.
Are some parts of the country easier than others to operate in? I mean, if you think about, since you mentioned you're obviously in hundreds of locations, are they all responding in the same way? What's the gold standard?
So one of the things that sort of factors that makes marketplace work really well is when you have a lot of density. And so that means in one location you have a lot of clients and a lot of taskers for us. Because if, let's say, you have a lot of clients but you don't have enough taskers, these clients won't come back because it's really hard for them to find someone to help them clean or fix up their yard or hang up their Christmas trees or their Christmas lights. By the same token, if, let's say, you in a city you get a lot of taskers but not enough clients are coming in, these taskers won't stay on a platform for too long because they're clearly there to earn money, and if we're not able to provide those opportunities for them, they will go and search that and do that elsewhere. And so really trying to make sure that there is a match between the two is important, and some cities do that better. Just by definition, by being larger and having greater density, it's easier to move around. And so our key markets have always been and will continue to be markets like New York City and San Francisco and LA and Chicago and DC. These are sort of the big core markets. But we have seen a tremendous amount of growth in smaller cities as well. And we definitely feel like there are many opportunities in cities like Nashville and Richmond and so on. And we see a really excited tasker population who are very keen to get onto the platform. And so that is a great signal for us that there is a great opportunity there.
Yeah, it's interesting. You must adjust your marketing spend because you mentioned that mismatch in some cities that you would have to be trying to get more taskers in some cities, and then in other cities you're trying to foster more demand, from the general population perhaps. When you look, give us a sense of what's around the corner. Where do you see the biggest opportunities going forward?
For TaskRabbit, really what we're going to continue doing is evolving and launching new products. And so we have something in the works right now that we're not ready yet to talk about. And so that's really exciting. And continue.
Can you give us a hint as to what the neighborhood is?
Obviously, it's not been so crazy from what we are doing today, but that's really all I can say.
Okay.
But it is really exciting because we still see so much opportunity. We also see so much more opportunity in really continuing to build that stronger match and making it much more easy and convenient for our clients to find the exact right tasker at the exact right time. So, I'll give you an example. Like in Brooklyn, We have thousands of taskers, but I always tell my team, but do we have a tasker who's available within an hour on a Friday night to go unplug a toilet in some apartment in Brooklyn at a high rise, and we may or may not, right? So it gets very challenging very quickly. And so we want to make sure that we're building those opportunities. Like, we have lots of plumbers, particularly in Brooklyn, but are they available on a Friday night? Well, perhaps they are for the right price. And so there's just a lot of work that we can continue to do to really define the experience for our clients, to make it much easier and much more convenient for them to get the help that they need.
So I would be remiss, Anya, not to ask you how AI is impacting what you do and the company does.
I think great question. It's so new, and there's just a lot for us to learn. So right now, what we're really doing is exploring. We're already starting to use the technology in many ways. I really think for us, there are sort of three buckets. There's the very clear productivity bucket, and we're starting there with CS, or customer service. I think that's very natural
Chat
place to start.
bots.
Yes, and I think you're seeing that across, and
Mm-hmm.
TaskRabbit is no different. I think, though, that there are other ways that we can think about productivity, and so whether that's with the engineering team or whether that's with our marketing team and how we think about content and so on. Um, and it is, to me, about increasing the productivity of the current team. It's not about replacing the team at all. There's just mundane tasks in those roles that happen every day. And to me, can AI be sort of like your high school assistant? Can it really do like a very, very basic thing so that you can focus
Mm-hmm.
on things that require more thinking and analysis and more planning and so on? So that's an area that we're exploring. And then, really, though, at the core of it, and I've talked about this, there's this concept of the match between supply and demand. And I think AI can really help us to think about how to do that much better. And the possibilities in that space are endless. And so
Is
that's
there an
what I'm most
example?
excited.
We always talk about this at the 30,000 foot level. Is there an example that brings that to life, even from a screening point of view? The way that your insurance company will rate doctors, and I don't know if you see another layer of sophistication that can go into not just matching, but screening, judging. You have a lot of data in
Of
house you can
course.
analyze.
Of course. And so the way we ask you, tell us about the size of the yard that you have and what you want done, and then taking that data to really think about who would be the perfect tasker given what you want, not maybe the person that knows how to um, do weeds and knows how to cut your grass, but someone who knows how to design and think about what types of plants you want. Those are different skills. And we think that we can use AI to better optimize that match than what we do today. We already have been using language models for quite some time, just like in
Mm-hmm.
algorithms, just like all other companies. It's just the next evolution of making that even much smarter than what we have today.
Now, you're excited. Is there any element of this that gives you pause? Because certainly we've had, Sam Altman of, ChatGPT, others who've talked with some trepidation about what's possible. What worries you in terms of AI?
I understand that, but at the same time, I'm definitely a glass half full, very optimistic type of a person. And I think, just like with any technology that we've experienced over the last, several centuries, just like with any innovation, it's very natural to have the trepidation and have the fear. And I think it is smart to understand what are some of the risks. But I think, from my perspective, I choose to think about all the positives that we can gain, and understanding that the right people should be thinking about the risks, and should be thinking about what it could mean. But I think there's always a balance, right? You can't overregulate something that barely yet exists, because you
Yeah.
could completely sort of stall the growth. But at the same time, you have to be understanding as to what the risks could be.
Yeah, I think that, before I let you go, you have protections for clients. I've been a client of a customer, excuse me, of TaskRabbit in terms of my own happiness. One of the things I remember when Uber first started was I remember getting an 8-pound drive from downtown London to Heathrow because there were no minimum prices. And that's one of the things that those kind of platforms do protect on the downside. Does TaskRabbit do that? Like if somebody comes in and says, I'll do it for $4, you're basically undercutting the market for plumbers in Brooklyn. What do you do to protect them?
We don't allow that. So in all markets, we set a minimum living wage, and we do not allow taskers to set rates below that for that exact reason. And I think if you look at the history of TaskRabbit, many years ago when the platform launched, it was a different model, one where you would post a task. Let's say you need your toilet unplugged, and then people would bid. And what often ended up happening is just sort of a race to the bottom. So you would end up with people who are willing to do it for £8 or $10. And we want to prevent that in the future, and we do that today because we really believe that it is an opportunity for taskers to make a meaningful income, and that's really important to us.
So I want to end, since we're talking about this is your first CEO role. What do you love most about your job, and what would you change?
Oh, wow. I mean, the thing that I really love most is spending time with my team and spending time with everyone within the company. And that can be a little difficult in a remote first environment. So we spend a lot of time really thinking about how to provide an environment where we can continue to collaborate and build these really strong connections, because those things are really important to company culture and just to the environment that we want to build within TaskRabbit. And so learning and being curious, it's, and talking to everyone within the company, whether you're, someone who reports directly to me, or whether you're someone who works on the product or works in finance, or you're a CS agent or anyone else. It's really great to have and to build those connections. That's how I learn the most. And your second question was what
would you change? Yeah, no, what would you change? Yeah. What pain point do you have?
If I could sort of wave a magic wand, I would try to think about how we can recreate some deeper sense of connection in this online world. Right now, the way we do this is, multiple ways where we get people together and we use different technologies and tools. I still don't think that they're quite there. And when we spend time in person, which we do quite regularly, we do feel this level of connection that is hard to replicate. If we could figure out how to do that in a more genuine and authentic way while we are working from home or working from our vacation spot, or wherever we are, I think that would be great. But I think technology still has some work to do. So we will see.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Anya.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been great.